host, Al Cooley. Welcome back to another great episode of Ghosts in the Valley. Today's guest is Wendy Kok. She is the fantastic author of A Gray Resort. It is classified between a romantic paranormal story and has won numerous awards, great reviews. I was honored that she came on the show and talked a little bit about her past history, and it's really got a lot of great reviews. Here's just a couple of them. This is from Elaine. I started reading this book on a road trip, and before I knew it, I had 5 chapters. It was engaging and I thought provoking from page 1. It is very vivid and descriptive from an author that is very creative and imaginative in her writing of this romance and science fiction book. It left me waiting with anticipation and excited for what is to come in the upcoming books in this series. And this is from an anonymous reviewer. I loved everything about this book, just couldn't put it down. I found this book an amazing read, and the author Wendy M. Kok takes you into a journey. Fantastically written with captivating characters, especially Brooke. I love fishing and those moments with the description of Lakeside Resort. It really fascinated me. The plot is interesting. It's filled with a lot of mystery and definitely worth your time. We'll be right back with my interview with Wendy Kok after this short promo of another great podcast I listen to, and it's from my friend Robert over at Ghostly Paranormal Podcast. We'll be right back with Wendy's interview.
Are you interested in all things paranormal, ghosts, EVPs, cryptozoology, and the history behind the legends we all love, but you don't have an hour out of your day to listen to another podcast? Well, then you should listen to Ghostly Paranormal, where we talk about all of those subjects and condense it down into 15 minutes or less. Check out Ghostly Paranormal.
Today we have Wendy M. Kok, author of A Gray Resort, book 1 of, many more books to come, Wendy?
Yeah. I plan on I'm working on book 2 now. It should be coming out later this year.
So what is book 1? It's like 1,000 Years of Crooked Forest?
Yeah, that's the series name, but the title of it is called A Gray Resort. And it was quite a labor of love, that book. I spent many years, probably a good 8 to 10 years working on the book.
Before we get into the book, I want to get a little bit on your background.
Yeah.
I see you graduated from Grand Valley State University.
Yes.
In a degree of communications.
I switched my degree many times, and I could go back and get a degree in psychology. I went there. I took a lot of writing classes. Writing was always something that I had loved. Even when I was a little girl, I would often write. It was more poetry than in my formative years. I wrote a lot of poetry and short stories. It was an escape for me, but it kind of came easy to me. Writing was always easy. I liked to do it. As I got older, I kind of went away from it a little bit because of life, and I just came back to it several years ago, and I'm so glad I did.
When you went into communications, did you know you were going to go into writing, or was there other fields you were looking at?
There were so many. The thing was there were so many things at that time that I wanted to do. It was really hard for me to narrow it down. At that point, I just said, you know what, I was more, I really wanted employment. So I went with a communications degree, thinking that it was pretty well-rounded as far as business and marketing, and I took a lot of creative writing courses and that. So that's kind of why, in public relations, something in that sort of field. And that's how I ended up with that degree. But writing has really been kind of at the forefront and something I've always loved to do.
And it led you to this book. That's great.
Yes.
I see you reside in Michigan, but you were originally from Wisconsin.
The only reason I'm in Michigan is because of my husband. So I used to be in the service. I was in the service quite a long time ago, and that's where I met him. we had gotten together in the service, and his family was from here. But I originally grew up in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. Tomahawk is about 4 hours north of Milwaukee. It's a small town. It's about 3,000 people. And my parents owned a resort. It was a summer resort along the lake. And that is where how my book is based on. It's based on that town. I've changed, names and things.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I did. You do have like 4 years in the Army, and thank you for your service for the nation.
Oh, thank you. It seems like so long ago. Oh gosh, it was like a different lifetime ago.
In Saudi Arabia, yeah. My brother was over there in the first Iraq War.
Okay, yep. Desert Storm.
Desert Storm, right?
Yep, that's where I was.
Mm-hmm. Did 4 years in the Marines, and I think 8 years in the Army.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a lot. There was a lot of interesting things that happened overseas. Like the first night we were out in the desert, saw a pit viper snake, and I hate snakes. I can't stand snakes. And I'm like, oh, okay, is this how it's going to be I was there probably about 7 months in Saudi Arabia. We jumped around. And I was there about 7 months. And the first night we were there, we were in a tent, not in a building. We were like in a tent. There was about 8 tents. A few female tents, a couple male tents. We had set it all up. We were exhausted. And that night, a snake crawled into our tent. And believe it or not, this girl, she was kind of known as like the clown of she just was always cracking jokes. And, sometimes you didn't really know if she was telling you a line or whatnot. And of course, the snake goes under her duffel bag, right? So early in the morning when she's getting up, she's like, there's a snake under my duffel bag. There's a snake under my duffel bag. Down in the sand and saw the snake track. I'm like, we couldn't believe it. Tipped over her duffel bag, and there it was, coiled up, same color as the sand. And I thought, oh my goodness, I was out of there so quickly.
Right, I would be too. So after you left the service and you moved to California and you spent a little time there.
Yes.
So you were in 3 auto accidents in one day.
Yeah. Let me tell you, have you ever driven in California, Southern California?
I've never been to California yet.
Okay. It's, there's a lot of traffic. The 405 down there. I mean, I didn't live there very long. I was there probably like 4 months. But, there were like little fender benders that I got in. But I think I was like in a drive-through at a Taco Bell and someone kind of rear-ended me. I mean, I wasn't doing anything, I was just sitting there waiting for, some tacos. The other time that day, I was in a traffic circle and someone kind of, hit the back of my car in the traffic circle. We had to stop. I'd never driven in those my entire life. And I was petrified of those things. Driving in California is, I don't know. I mean, I did eventually get used to it, but it's kind of a learning curve there.
When I look at people's backgrounds, and people ask me sometimes, what are you digging so far into their background? Well, I find that sometimes your history leads up into your writing of your book.
Yes.
Some of your experiences in life somehow, some way end up in your writings.
Absolutely.
I'm a musician too. So when I write songs or other people I work with, can tend to sway you one way or another into maybe your next chapter.
Oh yeah. It's like very therapeutic, I find. If something is sort of like unresolved in your mind or an experience that you've had or, somebody that you encountered and was, like, oh gee, I like to write things down in a journal and, it's just kind of neat in the writing process, how that stuff kind of comes out. So I know in writing, there's 2 kind of people in the writing things that you're either a plotter or a pantser. I think plotting has its place. It's just not the way I write. I sort of like write by the seat of my pants. I sometimes don't even know where the chapter is going to go as I'm writing it. It was surely like that when I was writing this book, A Gray Resort. I didn't know how the ending was going to go. And in fact, my other author friend said, this is really good. You really need to make a series, like 3 books. A series is good. 3 books. you need to extend the story on. And I'm like, okay. But it's really interesting, and I'm really excited about the second book that's coming out because, all the old characters from A Gray Resort's going to be in the second book, but I'm introducing new characters, and it's really exciting, and I can't wait till it gets out.
Yeah, I see that you had a book signing at Barnes & Noble in November in Newaygo, Michigan.
Yeah, I had a couple of different ones. My first one was at 317 Coffee here in Hudsonville, great local coffee shop. And it was my very first book signing ever. And I have to tell you, it was a magical experience. It really was. When I told all my friends and family, and when you see people waiting in line for your books so you could sign their book, I was just, I don't know, I'll never forget that day. I just couldn't believe it. It was just an amazing, the energy was high, you could just feel it in the air. And, it was just such a great feeling to have my book finally out there and people were waiting for it. And, I've gotten great reviews from this book too. And it's just the best feeling in the world. It's like a validation, that, oh, okay, what I wrote is good. What people can really, they liked it.
I plan on picking up your book. Almost all my authors I've had on the show, I've bought their book off Amazon or.
Wonderful.
So I help you out too that way. And I remember when I was back in New York once, and I went there for a convention, and I ran into Ray Coleman, who was the author of a John Lennon biography. And I wanted his autograph so bad. And I stood in line for an hour.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Then he shut off the autographs. I was
oh no,
five away. So later on that day, my wife and my kids, we were walking around the hotel and we're getting on the elevator. And guess who got on the elevator with me?
Well, that was meant to be. I was standing there
holding his book, and he says, "Would you like me to autograph that?"
That is great. I love to hear that, because that means that was meant to be. He was meant to meet you in the elevator and sign your book.
You also got honored for being a winner in the Romance Paranormal category and the 2020 American Fictions Awards.
Yeah, there's how there's these contests and things, and I thought, well, when I entered it, I to be honest with you, I completely forgot that I entered that contest. And the day I found out about it, I was doing a Facebook Live with a story club, which, by the way, if you enjoy stories and authors, and that this is a fantastic, it's called a story club. It's on Facebook. They have authors from all over the world with so many different insights and experiences. They have them on there. And I was doing that show, and it was about a 45-minute show. And that was my first Facebook Live, and I was a little nervous about it. But the night before that, I get this email, because I was preparing for that live, and I get this email that I won this award. It's American Fiction Awards winner for 2019. They had several categories, and I won the award for best paranormal/romance category.
That's awesome.
I know. I was excited. I was like, well, good. It was validation for me. And that was like the icing on the cake. And that was great to have that kind of news, right before I was going to go on the next day. So yeah, that was nice.
I see you're also featured author for the month of February at Georgetown Public Library in Jenison.
Yes, that was actually last February. I was a featured author there. And that was exciting too. With the pandemic and COVID that's been going on, it's made it so difficult for authors. Like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do, book signings this year. Are things going to get back to normal? I'm trying to plan and market. And, I'm sure with musicians too, when they go and play live and stuff, they're trying to figure out, okay, when is things going to get back to normal so I can go on stage? When are things going to get back to normal so I can have like a normal book signing? Because who wants to do a book signing when you got masks on? You can't hear each other. It's just not, it's it's not ideal, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be better once people get their vaccines and the country starts to open up a little bit more. I see that
Yeah,
a lot in the music field with bands that I've dealt with and
yeah,
deal with. That it's not just the musicians; it's their organization around them, like your roadies, your lighting crew,
everybody.
your stage hands. I mean, so many people's affected by this. Thousands and thousands of people put out of
Exactly.
work,
Right. It's not like it used to be.
right? And it does put a big damper on. I hate to say it's like, if you're at a book signing, and you're like everybody's standing there in their mask, you're social distancing, and
All
maybe the
right.
amount of people will even be greater,
Right.
because of the crowd limit.
Well, yeah. Well, then when they put limits on everything, it just makes life a little bit more difficult, a lot more difficult. And
Hmm.
my friends and I have been really adamant about, supporting small business and supporting our entertainers. And, when they're doing like Facebook Lives or whatnot, just, try if you can, if you're able to support these people because, when it does get back to normal, let's hope the restaurants are there when they come back. I mean, some of these restaurants and things aren't going to be able to make it. They can't, how can you, like right now, we're pretty strict right now. In fact, we're at the restaurants and bars around here are only at 25% capacity. And that just recently happened. I mean, so how can you pay 100% of your employees at 25% capacity? You can't do it. You're going to have to let people go. And I don't know, it's just sad. I'm just hoping, by this summer, things will get relatively back to normal. I'm hoping, crossing my fingers.
Right. Yeah, we can get back to some sense of normalcy in this country.
Yeah. And I think you're right, with the shots. I mean, I got my shot a couple of weeks ago. And I'm due to get it, the second one here in another couple of weeks. And I think with the shot rollout, in getting, people vaccinated, I think that's going to be the key to getting things back to normal.
I see that you're also have a podcast, a Juicy Pear.
Yes. Yes. So, my friend and I, Sean, she's great. We balance each other out very well. So a Juicy Pear podcast with Sean and Wendy. We are on all the directories: Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, Google Play, Alexa. Anyway, we started this back this past November. But over the summer, we were kind of thinking, she's had a lot of different things happen to her, as have I. And we just thought that, what, we should do a podcast. We love people. We love talking about interpersonal relationships and, things that people might have encountered in their life and an obstacle, and they overcame it. And, we wanted some uplifting stories. And we thought, yeah, let's do it. We balance each other out. I'm more of I don't know, it's kind of like a spiritual, I make hard left turns rather. And she's like, the practical side. So it mixes well, I feel, so we're having a great time with that. We've had several authors on already. I have a psychic coming on in April. I have a ghost hunter coming on in March. We have all different kinds of people. We're going to have musicians on as well, business entrepreneurs. So, creative types. And if you have a neat story to tell, yeah, we would love to have you on.
I thought that was kind of interesting. I like the title, plus I like the way you have different topics on there. I listened to the first one, but I haven't. I got to listen to some more. I just started listening to it. As a matter of fact, this morning I heard I was doing some research on you, and came across. I thought that's pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
You guys do balance each other out. What's her name? Sean?
Yeah, Sean Smith. Yep. So she had a brain aneurysm around this. Actually, you know what? It was this time last year she had a brain aneurysm. And she came very, very close to death's door. I mean, she really did. And we have an episode on that. I'm not quite sure what number episode it is, but we do have an episode just based on her experiences with that. She made a complete 100% recovery. Most people that have that kind of brain aneurysm that she had, they don't, they don't come back from it. Or if they do come back, there's, impairment. And she's a walking miracle. She really is.
Yeah, that's really great that she came back from that,
Absolutely.
jumped right into that podcasting.
I know. She's good people. I mean, she's one of those kind of people that, you really enjoy being around because she's got a lot of light. It's great. She's great.
And looking on your some of your bio, I've seen from Chris Stapleton, Neil Young, Nirvana, the Scorpions, the Who, Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God! It says, I knew the book's got to be great because her taste of music's all over the place. So it's got to be like,
Yeah.
you're wide open. I like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
If you're just country,
Right.
you're just gothic rock or whatever, so it's
right.
You're kind of stuck in one place.
You are. Yeah. I'm pretty vast when it comes to that, pretty open-minded. I don't know. I've always been like that. And, when I was talking to Sean about this podcast, we didn't really want to narrow things down because I just feel like then that kind of really limits you, because I thought, well, wow, what if I, want to have this person on and it's totally off topic and, it's not our genre or whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't want to have that. I want to have something that if I think the person is interesting enough to have on, I'm going to have them on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think how we came. Okay. So a juicy pear. So I had come up probably with about 50 different names for it. I really liked that one. And but this is like a 50-50 partnership. So if Sean didn't like it, then we wouldn't use it, but I was really hoping she would pick it. And so when I gave her the list of, it became on the short list. And then she's like, you know what? I really like a juicy pear. I'm like, yes, good, because I like it too. Let's do it. Let's go for it. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I know when I did my Ghost in the Valley, it's like on the paranormal, I'm thinking, what can I name? Well, I did a documentary on short stories on true ghost stories in my valley in the northeastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania area.
Okay.
So, the name of the documentary was Ghost in the Valley. So hence the podcast.
I love the name. And I like the picture too.
Thank you. And that was drawn by a coworker of my sister's.
I love it. I'm glad it's not in color because it just sort of captures the eeriness of it. I like is that like a pencil or ink?
It's a pencil drawing, yes.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that it's not in color. I think it's great.
So you have blogs out too?
So right now I feel like I have a lot of irons in the fire. So I have my website, wendymkokauthor.com. So I try to post a blog on that every so often. I think the most recent blog post I have on there it's been a few months. But I also have, I co-host a juicypearpodcast.com. So I've been really working on that as well as, trying to get this second book edited. I mean, I'm going to have it professionally edited as well, but I want to get it as good as it can be before I bring it over to Book Baby, which is my self-publishing company that I used. They're great, by the way. I'm going to give them a little plug, Book Baby. So they have their own graphic design team, their editing and their marketing and whatnot. But so I'm busy right now trying to get my second book edited. And, I also have a part-time job at the high school. So
So is your book finished?
It's, for the most part, the meat of it is finished. So right now I'm just kind of going through making some editing changes, adding a couple little things, but the main part of it is done. It needs to be edited, and then I have to, design a cover for it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if it was self-published or if you went with a publisher.
Yeah, I decided to self-publish because I wanted to retain all of my rights for my own book. I like doing it that way. And I wanted to have the book my own way, the way I wanted it. I didn't want it changed a lot. Traditional publishing houses, you can get some of your artistic freedom taken away a little bit. I mean, not with all of them, of course, but yeah, I just like the idea of having the full rights of my own book.
I was thinking, with blogging and your podcast and writing a book, and then I say, oh my God, she has 2 sets of twins at home. I'm like, I don't know how you do it,
I know. I'm trying to work on time management. So those were difficult.
Now, let's get to your book. Let's get to A Gray Resort.
Yes.
What is the book about?
So I wanted to write a book about my experiences living on a resort. So the book is fiction, though. So how it starts out is, so I grew up in this resort. It was a summer resort along a lake. We had 8 cabins. We had a pool. I didn't realize back then how good I had it. And my parents were the most accommodating, wonderful. I mean, they took in all kinds of people, and I mean all kinds. They loved people. So what happened was, so on Saturdays, they would have changeover day. So on Saturdays, people would check in to their cabin. And after they've been checked in, my mom would come around each cabin and say, hey, we're going to have like a get together, picnic, whatever, would you like to come? Maybe bring a dish to pass, or, just go out to the grocery store and pick up something. And, we're all going to get together, and everybody would come. So my dad would have friends, and they would move these picnic tables all together along the resort there, right along the lake. And there's a lot of them. And everyone would come, and then people from in town would get wind of, hey, resort's having a party again. They would come in, our neighbors would come. And before you know it, I remember as a little girl, I'd be bumping into people, but it was good. It was good. My dad would provide all the food, and we never ran out of food. It was strange. I mean, we never ran out of food. Like, he would get a couple dozen, like, chicken thighs, or, like corn on the cob and brats. And there would just be all this food, and people would come. Sometimes people would come if they needed to eat something, and that was fine. But we never ran out of food, and there was always just a good energy there. After my dad would get done, he was like the grill master. He'd be at the grill. And then afterwards, he'd bring out his guitar, and everyone would be singing. And I don't know, it was just a very different time. Very interesting. Now the paranormal aspect of it is, there were some strange things that happened on the resort, and I included that in my book. So my book is fiction, but it is based on certain things that actually happened to me. So this girl, Brooke, teenage girl, goes fishing one evening. And as she's fishing, she gets the shock of her life. And that's how the book just kind of goes from there. So she kind of discovers things about what's going on around the resort and in her town. And she kind of gets a shock. So there's elements of reality. You'll be reading it, and there are things that did actually happen. And then there are things, of course, that I just totally made up, totally fiction. And that's what was fun about it. I enjoyed doing it. We had my favorite characters out of the book has to be Lyle and Cassie. I've changed names. They've since passed on, but Cassie was like the salt of the earth kind of person. She was very loud, very fun personality. It was, so those 2 characters in the book I'll just say that they are based on real people.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yep. They are based on real people. It was very fun writing it. And it really took me back to about things that happened. I'm like, oh, it was just a really nice thing down memory lane. I really enjoyed it. And of course I elaborated, and some of the things that some of these characters encounter, well, you'll have to read the book to find out.
Oh, I definitely will. And I put a lot of comments of the book that were 5-star ratings in my pre-show opening.
Oh, nice.
So I'm thinking I got to get this book. Well, it's on my next list of my Amazon orders.
Wonderful.
All I need is for you to autograph whenever I get to Michigan.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to do that. Yeah, I would love to meet you. I plan on having a book signing, hopefully later this year. A couple of different ones.
Well, it's been my pleasure having you on the show today, and where's some of the places they can get your book or contact you?
Yeah, so they can contact me at wendymkokauthor.com. They can send me an email there. I'm on Instagram. I'm Wendy Kok and number 4 on Instagram. Feel free to follow me on there. My book, A Gray Resort, and that's Grey Resort, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target.com, Walmart.com, and also Book Baby Bookshop. I think it's pretty much available wherever books are sold. And, like when you go on Amazon, you can also type my author name and it should come up as well. And I have an Amazon author page, Wendy M. Kok. I'm on Goodreads as well. Yeah, find me on there.
Awesome. You plan on putting that out as a audio book?
I'm working on that.
I'm a sucker at audiobooks. Well, I got to say, I've been reading more since my sister's giving me her books to read now. But
Yeah.
I do like I find I have more time when I'm traveling.
It's easier, isn't it? It's easier, like to listen to something while you're, in the car. I'm working on it. I would love to get it into an audiobook. So it's kind of in the works now, but I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be happening in the future. I would love to have it anyway.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show, and I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day for this.
It's been a pleasure being on here.
Thank you, Wendy, for that great interview. And like I said, I have the book on order, and I ordered it from Amazon, and I can't wait for it to come. But again, thank you very much, Wendy, and I appreciate your time because, raising 2 sets of twins and writing a book and having a podcast is time-consuming, and also having a full-time job on top of all that. All of Wendy's links, her podcast, her book, everything will be in the links below this episode. And again, you can find me on Apple, Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, whichever one you listen to my podcast on. Please rate and review. I would appreciate that. And if you don't know how to rate and review or subscribe, if you subscribe to this podcast, every other Tuesday, you will get the brand new episode that's out. Plus, you can scroll down through the old episodes and from the last couple of years and maybe pick out one you want to listen to. And I'll leave a couple links in the bottom of this podcast also. So if you really don't know how to do that, you just click on the link. It'll take you to the podcast, scroll down and hit subscribe, maybe leave me a review, and it's that easy. I'm your host, Al Cooley. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another great episode on Ghosts in the Valley.